We are not teaching the curriculum. We are not teaching the music. We are not teaching skills. We are not teaching concepts. We are teaching the human beings in the room with us.
That's today's guest, Director of the Institute for Accessible Arts Education and Berkeley College Professor Rhoda Bernard, reminding us why we are in the classroom each day. Welcome to Music Ed Insights. I'm leadership trainer and former band director Alan Fire, here with composer and co-college music education program head Steve Shanley.
Each episode, Alan and I talk with national thought leaders in music education with practical insights for K-12 music educators.
Steve, tell us about our guest.
Dr. Rhoda Bernard is the founding managing director of the Berkeley Institute for Accessible Arts Education and the assistant chair of the music education department at Berkeley College of Music. Dr. Bernard regularly presents keynote presentations and research at conferences throughout the United States and abroad, and she provides professional development workshops for educators in local, national, and international forums. Her book, Accessible Arts Education, was just published in September. Find Rhoda's full bio, show notes, and resources at musicedinsights.com. Alan, what was the takeaway you had from this episode?
As you know, I am huge on attention to the macro class structure. Regardless of student disability or diagnosis, the predictable macro structure is more powerful than most realize. What about you, Steve?
Yes, that was actually my takeaway too. And a reminder to our listeners, if you haven't already, please check out Alan's pro tip from last week. This one resonated with a lot of you. And also, today's interview, just a little warning, it's a little bit longer than our usual episode, but it's very worth it, even if it means breaking it up into a couple of listening sessions.
Yes, very worth the listen, especially because she does such a great job of making sure every level and discipline gets solid ideas. Let's get to Rhoda Bernard.
Rhoda Bernard, welcome to the program.
It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, we've asked you to join us today and help us do a better job unleashing creativity and learning in all of our students, especially those who come to us with some extra needs. But before we dig into some specific strategies and recognizing that most teachers are already certainly trying their best, what are some of the most common problems you are seeing in K-12 music classrooms these days?
Well, first, I want to underscore something that you said in your question. Most teachers are working really hard, and they are seeing a more diverse range of the kinds of needs and the kinds of strengths that students bring to the ensemble, to the classroom, than ever before. So we need to start from that standpoint. It's really important. I love the way you framed the question. Given that, what are some things that people come to me about? I'm struggling with this, that, or the other. One is how to reach such diversity in one space. So you've got a band of 75 or 80 students, and you've got some with different diagnoses. You've got others with physical issues. You've got others who need different kinds of processing time. You are one person. How does one person reach all of that? And you've got a curriculum and an agenda, right? You've got to get those pieces ready for the next performance. You've got to get the students ready for the next event. How do we juggle all of that? So one big thing that I think is a challenge is juggling all of that. Another piece that can be really challenging is when a student appears to have some additional needs that you want to support, but there's no documentation, there's no official accommodation being requested, and you're not sure what your role is here. You might want to know, who do I talk to about this? What do I do that's equitable in my space? That sort of thing. So those are two examples.
And so you've just released a new book entitled Accessible Arts Education. Who's your target audience for this book?
The target audience is educators in all settings. So the book is published by Solution Tree Press, and they tend to focus on pre-K to 12. But the strategies and the framework of accessible arts education applies to anyone learning anything in any context at any level.
So is it 10,000 pages long? I'm pretty impressed.
No, it's only a couple hundred. So What the book aims to do is to provide a framework from the field to get you to think about what are the barriers that a student or a group of students might be facing? How can I reduce or remove those barriers? And to start with accessibility in mind rather than having it be first I plan my lesson, then I think about accessibility, to embed it more intentionally at the beginning so that a lot of issues can be addressed with a very specific kind of mindset and framework. Within that, there are lots of specific strategies, and those are also discussed in the book. The other piece of it, though, is this. This is another reason why the book is not 10,000 pages long. And that is this book offers the framework, the habits of mind, and the strategies, but it is not the end of the conversation. It's articulating the field and opening it up as a generative opportunity. So at the end of the book, in the epilogue, I invite everyone who's reading to come up with their own strategies and their own ideas and to use what's in the book as a springboard for creativity and artistry in your own teaching. So there aren't enough pages, I think, to capture all that is going to hopefully germinate from this book.
You said something just a little bit ago that I want to come back to, which is to start with accessibility in mind. And Alan and I are old enough that when we were taking these types of courses to help us with this in college, mine was called Mainstreaming the Exceptional Child. What was yours called, Alan?
Psychology of the Exceptional Child.
Yeah, it was the exact opposite, if I remember correctly. It was how are you going to adapt your existing lesson plan to meet the needs of these diverse learners? When did that shift start to happen that we need to begin with accessibility in mind? Because, and I'm mostly curious because I think maybe for some of our listeners who are younger and have been going through some of this training more recently, perhaps this is not a new concept for them. And then as the listener tends older, it might be a more novel concept.
Well, I don't think the field has made the shift to the field of music teacher education. And that's one of the issues. Generally speaking, if you are in a music teacher licensure program, you get a class with a title like the ones that you reported. Often it is not offered by the School of Music. It's offered elsewhere in your university if you're in a university setting. And it does not have the approach of start with accessibility. That's something that really is quite recent in accessible arts education. I would say within the last 8 years or so.
How about outside of arts education? Are other teachers in K-12 settings, have they been doing this for a while, or is this kind of a relatively new concept to start with accessibility regardless of the subject area?
It is a relatively new concept to start with accessibility regardless of the subject area. Yes.
A number of our listeners are secondary ensemble teachers. And I promise I'm going to ask questions for all of our subjects and grade levels at some point. But this is the one, especially since this is the familiar content for me and for Alan. That's what we're used to is pick some music, teach it, sound good at the concert, maybe along the way if we can teach a little history or creativity or whatnot. So I think probably for those teachers, this is going to be the biggest paradigm shift, whereas as usual, our elementary general music teachers are probably already doing some of this or are going to be more adaptable. So if my job is I have a marching band program that I need to design. It's May, and I need to figure out my marching band program, or marching band ended, and now I need to pick my December program. What does that look like when the final product is, by and large, going out and performing in public?
I'm really glad you asked this, and I want to answer it in a couple of ways. So I tell my pre-service music educators whatever they're looking to do, and when I talk with teachers, I talk about this all the time. We are not teaching the curriculum. We are not teaching the music. We are not teaching skills. We are not teaching concepts. We are teaching the human beings in the room with us. So we have to start by reaching every person in that room. And I get you. You've got a marching band program that's got to happen. You've got pieces that you've got to perform. But you have to reach that trombonist who might need additional processing time in a way so that that trombonist can learn meaningfully and participate authentically in the ensemble. You've got to teach that drummer with a physical disability in a way that that drummer has a part they can play that is real in your piece. So it's shifting that balance to, yes, I've got this program, and yes, I've got these students.
I remember one of our previous guests, I said, well, what do we do when we're worried about making the product sound as good as it possibly can? And she said, you stop worrying about that so much. You
Yeah.
understand that when you shift your mindset to worrying more about the student than the curriculum, that it's not going to sound like the Eastman Wind Ensemble. And as Alan and I have joked many times, it wasn't going to sound like the Eastman Wind Ensemble anyway, whether you had three special needs students in the band or not. So I think that's a really helpful reminder as well.
There's so many examples of different aspects of our students, those human beings that need some accommodations. You've used processing time as an example in a couple of occasions. Is that one of your go-to examples for a reason? Do you think that's maybe an area that we're not paying as much attention to? Processing time needs?
I love how you're reading little pieces of my mind when I'm not saying something. So I especially thinking around ensemble performance, right? So the processing that is required to execute a musical performance in time, right? Figuring out when you make a mistake and keep going, processing the visual of sheet music in conventional notation, turning it into what you do on your instrument, hearing the sounds around you and making sure that what you're doing makes sense in the whole. All of those things are complex mental processes. And different individuals, because of how their brains happen to be wired, may need additional time for one or more of those tentacles of that process. And that can be really challenging when the tempo is here. What are we going to do? Well, we might have to have a different part. That student who's supposed to be playing quarter notes here might be playing quarter note rest instead because of the way they process, for example. So I used processing time on purpose because we were talking about this particular setting, but it is something that a lot of folks, particularly in music, because we are working with time in such a unique way that we need to pay attention to.
The example you just gave of simplifying to quarter note rest, or others, it's funny because I was doing that 20 years ago with my high school band, but I was not doing it because I was trying to make sure I was reaching the needs of the learner. I was doing it because it would make the product sound better.
Yep.
So that's one of those things where I can sort of help remind the listeners that this is something, this suggestion, everybody wins. You're looking to give yourself a better sounding product, and also you're giving the students something they can achieve and be successful at as well.
Exactly.
I'm curious, as you are describing the accommodations or changes we might need to make, and I'm thinking about just some of the programs in my area or in Alan's area of the state. And I think that in a high school program, especially where there are leveled ensembles, or at the very least more than one, that this becomes a way easier problem for them to solve. Not an easy problem to solve, but easier, because chances are if you have a ninth and 10th grade choir and an 11th and 12th grade choir, or a top choir and a non-audition choir, or whatever, that you tend to have more like abilities grouped with one another. So the challenge, the big challenge to me, comes with that sort of small school where your band or your choir has 19 students in it, and two of them are way high flyers. How do you go about designing or approaching this in a way that your high flyers are still getting challenged, and just the diverse ability levels that you're going to have, especially when the program or the school might be on the smaller side?
I love this question. And before I answer it, and I will, I promise, I also want to frame something that you said. When you said different ability levels, one thing we need to keep in mind, folks, is that for some of our individuals who have a disability or a diagnosis, they may have extraordinary abilities with us. So we don't want to necessarily say that just because this student, is perhaps neurodivergent or has a physical disability, that they are not capable of making awesome music, because music is one of those things
Couldn't
that,
agree more. And I
Oh,
point
yeah.
out my students who had ADHD, they were the best improvisers I ever had.
right.
I always wanted them in my jazz band because they were very creative and I loved listening to them solo. So couldn't agree with you more on that.
Exactly. So just pointing that out. But your bigger point about, okay, you've got 19 in your ensemble and all over the map. So the suggestion I'm going to give you comes with a little bit of a caveat. I actually think peer assisted learning is a really good suggestion here. So you get the students who can mentor other students to mentor other students. Now, here are some caveats. I don't believe in singling people out. So if there's a student who needs a buddy, we all get buddies. So it's not like we're all working individually and one student is buddied up, because that singles people out and leads to other issues.
Can you describe what that would look like in our fictional 19-person group? Are there nine groups with two buddies apiece?
Yes.
And is one buddy in charge of helping the other buddy, or what does that look like?
And we'd have probably have one group of three because there were 19 students. You did a nice odd number. I love that.
Yeah.
And then you would give the people roles. Exactly. So one buddy would be in charge of teaching the other buddy, helping them, maybe helping them counting, maybe helping them with intonation. We're talking about choir, right? So maybe making sure they understand the part, helping them keep their place in the octavo, for example, helping them keep tempo. A lot of inexperienced vocalists in my years of experience, sometimes an issue can be not having internalized what I like to think of as the superhighway of rhythm, the sort of feeling that, okay, I'm in the quarter note lane, and if I just go twice as fast, I'll be in the eighth note lane. But if I go a third as fast, I'm going to be in this lane. To understand how that all relates and to have it sort of sync up properly, that can be challenging for inexperienced singers. So really making sure the rhythms are clear. It might be clapping rhythms. It might be that you actually have a period of time during the choir where everyone's working together and it's cacophony for 20 minutes, but they're all working together and you're going around the room. And then during the actual rehearsal that they're helping each other out. Depending on how the buddy groups are constituted, you can also have them switch roles, which I love because then students can feel like they're experts all the time. I was going to give you a caveat. So one was everybody gets a buddy. The second is I'm very aware of something called buddy fatigue. So those high flyers have probably been buddied up a whole lot, and we want to ensure that it doesn't become a burden, and that just because they're the highest flyers, they're not buddied with the people who need the most support, to give everybody a chance to be buddied in lots of different ways. So the sopranos can work with one another in different configurations, for example. Why do I, as a soprano, think that the high flyers are sopranos?
I
Anyway,
was going to guess soprano or flute. That was
there you go. So,
Oh, come on.
so that's how the buddy system can work.
I liked when you said that it isn't that one buddy is necessarily in charge of the other buddy, that all the buddies are going to help one another. So, in an instance of, like, let's just be honest, we're using the buddy system to help the people where they struggle more. So, the struggling buddy, what is something the struggling buddy you could assign or suggest help the other buddy with that they could be successful with?
So once the struggling buddy has learned whatever they're working on, to teach it to their buddy. So it could just be the thing they just did.
Oh, now teach it back.
Yes, if you know the students well, so let's say you've got a struggling buddy, but they have a really good internal metronome, like their rhythm is killer, and they've been working on pitch, then you could assign it, but that would be more personalized. If you're dealing with a whole group and you want to switch roles, then whatever you just learned, your job is to teach. The other thing we can do is sectionals. So we can get those high flyers to be section leaders. We can also rotate the role of section leader. But peer assisted learning, when it's used, when the peers are oriented well to their roles and it's used effectively, can really help with the multiple levels in the room.
I'm going to ask a question that I hope will make Alan really proud that I have been listening to him for the last 20 years. So I'm going to guess the way to not approach this is to come in and say, all right, today we're doing a new thing. We're going to do buddies. So you and you, your buddies, you and you, your buddies, and you. Okay, we got them all assigned. All right, buddies, help out with cloudburst. All right, go ahead and help your buddy. And that's probably not the right way to do it. And that there might be something the teacher needs to do to help them learn how to be effective buddies. What does that look like? First of all, Alan, are you proud of me?
I'm proud of you, Steve.
Okay,
Proud of you,
thank you.
Dr. Shanley.
All right, go ahead, Rhoda.
And I'm proud, I'm joining Alan in my pride with you. Yes. So there are a few different ways to this, and it depends on the age of the students, and it depends on how well they get along with each other as a group. I would start with something very small and very concrete, and maybe it's even starting with warm-ups, because that's something that levels the playing field a bit. And then to say, okay, what's one way that you could help your partner do warm-ups better? Get a suggestion from the group. Oh, we could help with making sure that we're singing in head voice. Great. So then give the students a list of steps to work through to help activate head voice together, for example. Starting with one thing, very concrete, very specific, because you're right. If it's just like, okay, buddies, go teach each other, first of all, it will turn into mayhem. And second of all, most folks won't know where to start. So give them something very specific. And then once they're good with that, and they've done a couple of specific things, you might be able to make things a little more complex. Okay, we're having trouble with measure 8 of cloudburst. What could some of the trouble signs be? Hear from the group, how would you work on that? Devise a way to do that, have the buddies try it. So we're not letting the buddies run completely loose because we want that time to be as valuable to the ensemble and frankly to us as educators as possible. So let's get the buddies rolling up their sleeves with the things that we care about.
I appreciate the egalitarian use of the word buddy as opposed to like mentor, mentee, or big brother, little brother, whatever. That's a little passe now. I appreciate this. Everybody can learn from everybody.
I think that's the real point. And I think, we are a performance ensemble, but we are also people learning and loving music together. When you do this well, it creates a real sense of community in the group in a different way.
So I have a Steve follow up to a very Alan comment that Alan just made. Like, yes, it's an equal term, but like, let's be honest, chances are if I'm in this 19-person choir and I'm paired up and Rhoda is my buddy, I realize, yeah, that's because Rhoda made All-State and I am really struggling with this. So they're aware, right?
Yes, they're aware, but let's not emphasize it. Our job is to create a culture where no matter who made All-State or not, we're all equal and valuable in this group together.
Back to your book for a minute. I like how so far all of our discussions have been general enough that they very much could apply to people who have diagnosed disabilities or not. In the book, do you get into the weeds? Here are some specifics for people on autism spectrum. Here are specifics for ADHD, or does it stay pretty broad?
It's a little bit different, and I love the question. So the population of people with disabilities is extremely diverse, as you would imagine. And even within diagnoses, there's an incredible diverse range of expression. So two people with ADHD, even two people with the same subtype of ADHD, looks, feels, learn completely differently. So diagnoses are extremely useful in a lot of ways, but not in how best to teach someone. So rather than saying, here's what we do with a student with X diagnosis, it's here's what we do when a student has this sort of challenge. So I'll give another challenge. Here's what we do with a student who has trouble focusing their attention. They might have trouble focusing attention because they have ADHD, because they have anxiety, because they have autism, because they are in physical discomfort, because they are hungry, because they haven't slept well enough, because it's snowing outside. It's so fun when it snows. Like it could be 1,000 reasons, because they can't see well, because they can't hear well. I could keep going. So rather than get siloed into a diagnosis, I'd rather think about the specific challenges and look at it that way. And honestly, most people come to me and say, this student has this. Tell me the three things I'm supposed to do. And I have to say, actually, right. So I think that's good. Let's disabuse people of that notion from the beginning.
Well, and that's a great point because if we just make a unfortunately broad generalization to students who do not have disabilities. So we have students who don't have disabilities. We have plenty of teaching strategies for those students who maybe have trouble keeping a steady beat or can't hear higher and lower. So yeah, why would we pigeonhole ourselves just because they also have that challenge but are labeled as being on the autism spectrum?
Could not agree more.
So we started by talking about those ensembles. I'm curious for our elementary general music teachers who Alan and I are predicting are already doing a whole bunch of this stuff better than most of our middle and high school teachers like Alan and I were. What might be some things that you think, yeah, this might be something that as an elementary general music teacher you haven't considered, something that is kind of maybe 301 instead of 101 that you can help our elementary teachers with?
Two things. When people ask me what are the two things I can do to make my teaching more accessible, there are two. One, structure and schedule. And I talk about in the book the macro structure and the micro structure. The macro structure is not something that we explicitly communicate about. It's just, it happens so frequently that it subliminally sinks in for everyone. And that is that generally speaking, the beginning, middle, and end of a time in a class with you feels the same. So I'll make this up. In the beginning, there's some sort of warm up and the teacher takes attendance. And then we do something new for a while, and that's the middle. And towards the end, we do something that we're really successful with, and we have announcements and some kind of cleanup or closing activity. That broad. Obviously, and I'm thinking now about an ensemble, but I'll come back right before the concert or right after the concert or right before a vacation or right after. It won't always be the same. There are times when the beginning, middle, end will look differently. But that generally speaking, the beginning, middle, and the end feel the same. And then the microstructure is on the board, the list of what we're going to do today. And not just having the list there, but being explicit about the list. This is the explicit one, and doing what I call telegraphing the agenda. We just did our warm up. Now we're going to move to literally telling them, this is here, I see it, we're using it, this is what we do together. Oh, we just had a fire drill. We're not going to get to everything today. We're going to skip this and go on to the next one. And then I promise you we'll get back to those next week. Why is this so important? Because a lot of learners, whether they have a disability or a diagnosis or not, experience anxiety in school. Learning is vulnerable. Being in school is scary to begin with. The world is an anxiety-provoking place. Schools are as well. And if you have a disability or diagnosis, it's multiplied exponentially. It's not just all the other things that folks are nervous about. Now you have to worry about, will I be singled out? Is everyone going to be able to do something and I can't do it? Is the place physically accessible? Am I going to be asked to do an activity that doesn't take my disability into account? Whatever it might be. So structure and schedule really help people feel a sense of control, a sense of security, a sense of stability in an environment.
And just to clarify, you are suggesting this for a first grade general music classroom as well.
I'm suggesting this for a nursery school music classroom.
Here's what we're doing today. And if they're in nursery school, preschool, they can't quite read yet, we're just going to start the class by saying, here's what we're doing today. And
oh no, you'll have visuals with pictures.
Oh, yes.
And they're great. A lot of teachers of young children use them and they're great. And that actually, you're giving me a segue. The second thing is the visual modality. So we all know the big three modalities: auditory, visual, kinesthetic. We all know that good teaching means trying to activate multiple modalities because learning sticks better if we activate more than one modality. We also all know that most people gravitate to a certain modality. I am hyper auditory. Most people gravitate towards a certain modality. And by hitting multiple modalities, we engage more learners, but also we make the learning stick better. The thing that you may not have thought about, but it won't surprise you. So all of the arts are multimodal. They are all also dominated by a particular modality. So music is multimodal. We are definitely visual, we are definitely kinesthetic, and we are certainly auditory. All of the art forms have a modality that dominates their art form. In music, it's the auditory modality. And what won't surprise you, but you may not have thought of, is that arts educators tend to privilege the modality that dominates their art form when they teach. Why? We are musicians. We traffic in sounds. We help people create sounds. We put sounds together. We help people compose with sounds. We improvise with sounds. We are making sounds is the currency of our time together with our students. So it's not surprising that we would be primarily auditory when we teach. I get it. However, never mind that we want to be multimodal. Here's why the visual modality, in my opinion, is by far the most important teaching modality. And this is coming from a person where, of the big three, visual would be my lowest as a learner. And the reason is this: it has to do with time. We were talking about time earlier. Auditory experiences are moments in time. The actual experience happens once, we hear it, and it's over. Kinesthetic experiences are moments in time. The actual experience happens once, it has a beginning and an end, and it's over. Visuals stick around. You put something on the board that's visual. Could be symbols, could be words, could be instructions, could be the agenda, right? All those things. It's still there. You have a student who's distracted. The visual is there to support them. Now it's not just a learning modality, it's also a support. You have a student for whom English is not their first language. The visual is there to support them. You have a student who had difficulty knowing where to pay attention. The visual is there to support them. You have a student who's physically uncomfortable and was kind of squirming when they heard the instructions and didn't remember them. The visual is there to support them. So because visuals stick around, they are extremely helpful. They don't need to be gorgeous clip art. They can be words on a board. They can be music notation on a staff. They can be a worksheet or a handout. But I encourage teachers of all subjects to use the visual modality more. It will support students who didn't even realize they needed it.
I'm always kind of looking for ways to try to make people want to do the right thing. And earlier we were talking about how I inadvertently did the right thing for my learners 20 years ago because I simply wanted the product to sound better or cleaner or, fewer errors. And I think one part that we have briefly touched on off and on today that I want to draw listeners' attention to is this. They want a classroom that is well managed. They want a classroom that is not chaotic. They want a class that is what tends to probably drive teachers out of the profession way more than their group not sounding as good as they want it to. It's because they're exhausted at the end of the day. They feel like they're fighting this uphill battle. And it seems to me that so many of the things that you have talked about today, and I imagine are in the book, are going to help people not only do the right thing by the students, but also create a classroom environment that they're going to be a lot happier with.
I think that's true. And I've seen that. So, I teach at Berklee College of Music, and I started a couple of graduate programs in accessible music education. And our students and alums report that when you can really engage everybody and you're reaching the students better, the behavioral stuff disappears because a lot of that is that other things are getting in the way. When you remove those barriers, students are able to engage and really be a part of the learning process. And we have the most amazing subject to share with our students of all, right? And we're all in this profession because we are passionate about music and we are passionate about learning. And I think when we reach our students effectively and eliminate barriers to that, we can really see a lot of behavioral issues go by the wayside.
So I would love to take that graduate class with you. Is this something that is online or do I have to travel to Boston? Tell me a little bit about your program, what you've been up to, classes that you are teaching.
Sure. So at the Berkeley Institute for Accessible Arts Education, we do a lot of things. We have three legs to our stool. I'll just talk about this one. So we have only of their kind graduate programs that are based in accessible music education. There are two of them, a master's degree and a graduate certificate. And while we work with all disability populations in all of our work, the graduate programs are specialized in autism spectrum disorder because that is our specialty. So we have a Master of Music and Music Education with an autism concentration and a graduate certificate. So if you already have your master's degree in music education and autism. These programs are designed for working teachers. Classes are in the summers and the evenings. You can attend classes synchronously, remotely, so you don't have to come to Boston. But you can't just take one class. I'm working with the school on this because they're not in the business of doing these one class things. They're in the business of you've got to be in a program. I'm working on it, so check back with me on this. I've been working for a while, but I don't stop. But so at this point, the master's degree is a 33 credit full master's degree, Master of Music and Music Education. The graduate certificate's only 5 courses, 15 credits, which can be done in one calendar year, evenings and summers. So there are 5 core courses in accessible music education. I teach two of them, a year long, a fall course and a spring course that's called Research to Practice, which the students read current research in the field and current books about practice, and then they do observations and apply it to their own teaching context and sort of build the bridge between research and their own practice. So that's two of the courses. Then there's one that's a really deep dive into autism from political, sociological, psychological, biological, historical perspectives. So there's that. There's a broader course in special education foundations and practices. So what do we need to know about special education and how to work with special educators and how to read an IEP and what the legal issues are, that sort of thing. And then there's a really innovative course that is called Autism, Music, and Behavioral Teaching Methods, which is about taking evidence-based best practices in special education. It's like a three-way Venn diagram. Evidence-based best practices in special education, evidence-based best practices in music education, and evidence-based best practices in general education. Where does that intersect? That's what the course looks at.
Well, I hope you can convince your bosses to allow those as one-offs because I just can't imagine the enrollment you would get from people who already have their graduate degrees or just maybe want to dip their toe in and learn about this.
So there is a toe dipping possibility that's different. So to take the course for credit as a one-off, we can't do. Here's what we can do. My institute offers fully online courses that are study groups. We're in the middle of one right now. We have sessions that you can come to, but they're also recorded and you get copies of the recording so you can be synchronous or asynchronous. A set of 6 sessions all about accessible music education. The one we're doing now is all about accessible music education. And I bring in a host of really terrific guests. And we look at things like there's one whole day on accessible guitar class, and there's another whole day on band, and another whole day on chorus, and several on different aspects of general music at different levels, as well as how do you work with people who have really high support needs? How do you work with students who are non-speaking? Things like this. So we do a bunch of these. And the way to find out about them is on our website. And we also, if you follow us on social media or join our newsletter list, we'll learn about them as well. But we offer them and we get them externally funded so that the toe dipper pays no money.
All right, this has been great stuff. Rhoda, can we ask you to stick around for a little bit with some lightning round questions?
I would love to.
All right, next time Alan and I are in Boston, where should we eat?
So there's a place that not that many people know about that I only recently discovered called Olivia's Bistro. It's in Newton, so not Boston proper, but 20 minutes away. And the food is exquisite but it's not fancy. It's like, heightened casual Italian food. Everything is delicious. And for me, because I'm lactose intolerant and Italian restaurants, cheese, 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 they have an entire vegan menu and everything is really wonderful. And it's just a place where you feel comfortable and welcome and you get some great food. So Olivia's Bistro in Newton.
How about a piece of music, a composer, or performer that you wish more people knew about?
Yesterday, I attended a concert by Catalyst String Quartet. They've been around for 15 years. They played a late Beethoven and a couple of other incredible pieces. And I was surprised I hadn't known more about them. They just happened to be on a Sunday when I happened to be able to go see a concert. So I am very curious to learn more about Catalyst String Quartet, for extraordinary musicians.
How about a favorite film or a TV series you've been enjoying recently?
I believe that the single best thing, and this is coming from someone who knows her television, the single best thing ever made for television is the show The Wire, which is an HBO show. And the less I tell you about it, the better, but it is extraordinary TV, the likes of which have not yet seen since and certainly were not seen before.
You're talking to two big fans here.
Oh,
Yep.
great.
And listeners, if you haven't tried it, I highly suggest when you try it, watch with the subtitles. You'll enjoy it a lot more.
True, true.
How about the most memorable live music performance you've attended?
I saw Sierra Hull at Sanders Theater in Boston, which is a gorgeous amphitheater. Sierra Hull is really a prodigy on the mandolin in a bluegrass style with a lot of her own compositions. She's probably in her early to mid 30s. And the sensitivity and the depth that she brought to her music and the fun that she was having with an incredible band made for a really great performance.
And I am recommending Accessible Arts Education as a book to our listeners. What book do you recommend for our listeners?
I recently read a book called Here I Am by Jonathan Safran Foer. I like his writing a lot. He wrote Everything is Illuminated and Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. Here I Am came to him or he published it in 2016. So it's been out for a while, but I hadn't seen it before. And I think it's quite good. It's a family story, and there's comedy and a lot of tragedy and some relationship struggles. And it's rare that I read a male writer who can get inside the heart and soul of women very, very well. And I related to his female characters. So I recommend that book.
Dr. Rhoda Bernard, this has been great. And we bill this as something to use with students who have some disabilities or some diagnoses. But this stuff's good for everyone. Lots of stuff for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And just to underscore what you just said, Alan, in the book I talk about this. One of the big principles of accessible arts education is that it is necessary for some and helpful for all. It makes all of our teaching better for everyone.
Thanks for listening to Music Ed Insights.
We're supported by Group Dynamic, a leading provider of youth leadership workshops. Alan works with dozens of schools each year to help develop their leaders. Learn more at groupdynamicyouth.com.
Or you could email me at alan@groupdynamic.net. Also sponsored by the Co-College Music Education Program. They've got a website too.
Just click their link at our website or email me at shanley@coe.edu.
Also, The Normal Design, helping normal companies and people create memorable, meaningful, and professional designs and branding. More at thenormaldesign.com.
And Winterset Websites, website design and maintenance. wintersetwebsites.com.
Our Facebook page is Music Ed Insights.
Our website has program notes, links, and a one-page download of this episode's key takeaways. That's on musicedinsights.com.
You can expect a new episode most Mondays during the school year.
Get current.
Stay relevant.
Music Ed Insights.